I'm going to start on the driver's side under the hood. I'm going to start by checking all my hoses and wires in general to make sure they're secure, not cracked, not broken. None of my wires are exposed or touching any metal, or none of my hoses are leaking. I want to check my air compressor and my power steering pump to make sure they're secure, not cracked, not broken. They're not leaking. Both of these units are gear driven, but if they were belt driven, then I would make sure that the belt was in good condition and had no more than 3/4 inches of play. I want to check my steering bar to make sure it's secure, not cracked, not broken, not bent or twisted in any way, and it's properly greased at its joints. I also want to check my power steering reservoir to make sure it's secure, not cracked, not broken, filled to level with its cap in place, and it's not leaking. I'd also like to check my power steering line to make sure it's secure, not cracked, not broken, it's not leaking, and its clamp is properly placed. I like to check my steering gearbox to make sure it's secure, not cracked, not broken, properly mounted to my frame, no bolts are missing, and it is also not leaking. I like to check my pitman arm, my drag link, my steering arm, and my tie rod end to make sure they're secure, not cracked, not broken, not bent or twisted in any way. All 3 castle knots are properly placed with none missing, locked in with the Carter pin. I want to check my suspension system, my brake system, my tire, my rim, my lug nuts, my hub assembly, and my valve stem to make sure that they are all secure, not cracked, not broken, filled to level, and not leaking, the same as I did on the other side. Would you like me to go through it again? Okay, I like to check my mirror supports to make sure they're secure, not cracked, not broken, no bolts are missing. My door to make sure it latches and unlatches and is not sagging at the hinge, secure, not cracked, not broken. My door bar to make sure it's secure, not cracked, not broken, free from any oil and grease. I like to make sure there's no bolts missing and it's properly secured. I like to check my side marker to make sure it's secure, not cracked, not broken, amber in color, and working properly. I like to check my steps to make sure that they're secure, not cracked, not broken. They're free from any oil and grease. These steps are also my battery box. I like to make sure that the batteries inside are in good condition, filled to level, not leaking, no exposed wires are touching any metal. I'd also like to make sure that my cables are properly tightened at the post. I want to start by checking my catwalk and my steps to make sure that they're secure, not cracked, not broken. They're free from oil and grease. My steps are properly mounted to my frame, secure, not cracked, not broken, and no bolts are missing. I like to check the bar to my steps, my hand bar to make sure it's secure, not cracked, not broken, free from oil and grease, and also has no bolts missing. I like to check my air lines to make sure they're secure, not cracked, not broken, not leaking, and they're properly attached to my glad hands. The seals are in good condition, and they're also not leaking. I like to check my electrical lines to make sure they're secure, not cracked, not broken. There's no exposed wires touching any kind of metal, and they're locked in at the pigtails from the truck to the trailer. I also like to make sure that all my lines are free from the catwalk, and they're not touching, and there's no chafing. I like to check all 4 sides of my trailer to make sure they're secure, not cracked, not broken, no holes, no rivets, and no bolts are missing. I like to check my clearance lights at the top to make sure they're secure, not cracked, not broken, and amber in color. And then the back, they're secure, not cracked, not broken, red in color, and working properly. I like to check my DOT tape to make sure it's secure, not cracked, not broken, it's properly placed, it's visible, and it's in good condition. I like to check my apron to make sure that I'm making proper contact with my skid plate and there's no daylight in between the two. I'd also like to make sure that my 5th wheel is properly greased, my 5th wheel is properly placed on its base, and its base is properly bolted to the frame. They're both secure, not cracked, not broken, and no bolts are missing. I like to check my 5th wheel release arm to make sure it's secure, not cracked, not broken, and it's in a lock position when the trailer is attached to the truck. I like to check the rear axle of my tractor, the same as I did the front axle of my tractor, to make sure it's secure, to make sure that everything is secure, not cracked, not broken, filled to level, and not leaking. With the exception, I do have some differences. Back here I have dually rear tires. I want to make sure that they're secure, not cracked, not broken. There's no less than 4 inches of space in between my tires, and it's free from any trash or debris. I like to make sure that my tires don't have any holes, no nails, no rips, and no cuts. I also want to make sure that the tread depth on these tires is no less than 2/32. Anything less I would replace with a recapped or used tire. I also want to make sure that the PSI on these tires is 90 to 95 PSIs. I have dual valve stems. I want to make sure that they're secure, not cracked, not broken. They're facing inward towards each other, they're not leaking, and they're not touching my rim. I don't have a hub assembly, but I do have an axle seal, and I want to make sure it's secure, not cracked, not broken. It's filled to level, and it is also not leaking. I also have dual brake chambers and dual brake lines. I want to make sure that they're secure, not cracked, not broken, and that the lines are not leaking. I also have airbags, and I want to make sure that they're secure, not cracked, not broken. They're in good condition, and they're also not leaking.